G'day warriors and welcome back to Spartan Down Under. Today we are joined by Ashley Peterson. Ashley, tell us a bit about yourself, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, so my name's Ashley. I'm a single mum of two children. I currently live in Lismore in northern New South Wales, and I've been doing Spartans since 2016.
Very cool. And what actually sparked that interest in wanting to start OCR and start with Spartan?
So funnily enough, I didn't actually want to start it at all. I was living in North Queensland at the time, and I happened to be down in Brisbane to do the Bridge to Brisbane 10-kilometre. I was exclusively a road runner at the time. And while I was down there, my mother rang me and said, "Hey, we've got this Spartan event planned, and one of our teammates has dropped out. We need you to come and help us run it." And I had no idea what Spartan was. I knew my mum had been doing a few OCR events, but I'd never really looked into it for myself. And then I'm like, yeah, no, not my thing. I don't know. And mum just really laid it on thick, and she was like, "No, look, our teammate dropped out. You just need to pay a transfer fee. You need to come and do it with us, or we can't run." And she was making it sound like it was a full team event where you couldn't do it yourself. So I very begrudgingly gave in to her and went to Kmart the morning of and bought all this really cheap gear because I didn't want to ruin my good running stuff in the mud. And this is back when Spartan was 7 kilometers for a sprint as well. And when I finished it, I was just gobsmacked that I was able to do it. I was a runner, but I never thought of myself as strong. And that was my biggest hurdle getting into it. I was like, I can't do this stuff. Like, I can't climb over walls. And that just sort of steamrolled into it from there. So a bit of a interesting start into the sport.
Yeah, I think it's definitely... Look, I'll be honest, and I feel like I've maybe said this on this podcast before. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't my job, but also, like, I would never have thought that I was capable of doing it. But since, for those listening, know my dad, Bull, he's been doing Spartan for a very, very long time. And so I've always seen him do it, and I was like, well, I'll just never do that. And then when we kind of were in the works of talking about this podcast, I was like, okay, well, I guess it would be an interesting front to come at it for someone who has never participated, has never had an interest in participating, but is curious to push themselves and see how far they can take it. And so far, it's crazy because you really don't think that you're capable of doing these things. And to be fair, I haven't actually done the thing yet. By the time this comes out, I probably will have done the thing. But you don't think that you're capable of it. But even just in my training so far, I'm like, oh, I can actually walk further than I thought I could. And I can do more of this than I thought I could. Isn't that interesting when we push ourselves a little bit harder what we're actually capable of doing?
Honestly, that's what Spartan does. It's just every time you do an event, you find new ways to challenge yourself. Like, there's always something that you could do better. There's something that you could push a bit harder, and you learn so much about yourself along the way. And I've found I've done 33 races now, and I'm still learning things, and I'm still finding areas to improve on with every event I do. So I'm hoping you'll find that experience too.
Yeah. Look, I think that's what everyone seems to kind of find with Spartan, is that no two races are alike, and there is always something new that you can learn. And it's like, then, there's obviously the main Spartan events, but then you've also got things like the endurance, the hurricane heats, things like that test you in completely new ways. So it's never something that you're like, okay, well, I've done one race or I've done one ultra, therefore I can now go and do all of them because they're all going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, definitely not.
I mean, obviously you can go and do all of them, but they're not going to be the same, and you're not going to have the same experience twice, which is something that I think I look forward to. So as someone who loves routine and regularity, it's a really great opportunity for me to kind of push myself a bit and be like, okay, well, I'm in a situation where I cannot control pretty much anything except for my own body and how I react to it. And just to kind of get out of your head a little bit as well, which I feel like these races are great for.
Definitely. I was diagnosed with ADHD was it 2 years ago, I think. And I'm not medicated, so I'm still very all over the place. But Spartan is one of the few places that my head is quiet and I can just forget about everything. Like the outside world just melts away and the only thing I'm focusing on is what I have to do next. Spartan's really fantastic for that sort of thing. Although having said that, I don't thrive on routines, so I'm a little bit different to you in that regard. I'm very much one of those, hey, look, a squirrel.
Yes. Well, look, the fun thing with neurodivergence is that I've got autism and ADHD, so I have like warring brains of like need structure and routine, and also cannot function with structure and routine. So it's like a fun little constant battle. But kind of as you were saying, so you're a single mum of 2 neurodivergent kids.
Yes.
How do you juggle mum life, study, because you're also studying, and attending Spartan races?
Look, I'd like to say that I'm perfect at it and I've got it all nailed down, but it's actually the complete opposite. My life is very frantic. So my children are both autistic and ADHD, and my daughter has an additional diagnosis of something called pathological demand avoidance, which isn't actually highly recognised in Australia yet. But the children, they are so unique from each other and they trigger each other. So our household can just be an absolute chaotic mess every day of the week. As far as the juggling goes, like I'm not able to work. The demands of my children do require me to stay at home while they're still young, which is why I've decided to study. Outside of school hours is kids' time. I won't train. I don't study. It's all about trying to do the mum life, get homework done, get dinner made, all that sort of thing, and endless appointments with support workers and OTs and things like that. But those 6 hours a day between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. is my time to shine. So I'll drop the kids off and I'll head straight to the gym or out for a run. Then I come home, I have some food, I throw a load of laundry on that will probably be forgotten at least twice, and then do a couple of hours of study for the rest of the day. But honestly, I am permanently exhausted. My sleep pattern is destroyed. So it's just, you've just got to take each day as it comes and try to hang on with both hands and not fall off.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that that's so great. And it's so great to hear as well. I think it's so important to have candor around life, because whilst, you know, we see so much on social media of like the perfect lives, I feel like, and obviously as I'm not a parent, I cannot relate, but I feel like I do see these parents that are like big fitness influencers as well, and it looks from the outside, you're like, wow, everything's just like so perfectly like scheduled and planned out, and it all goes so smoothly, and I bet behind the scenes they're just pulling their hair out. But I think it's so great that also that you're taking the opportunity to study as well. I think it's so important as well, because study, and I feel like we've spoken about this on the podcast before, study is not necessarily a guaranteed job. You can study something that even can be in high demand, but it doesn't always necessarily lead into exactly maybe what you're wanting to do. So like being capable and aware and adapting, even if it's because of your situation, adapting with that and kind of following what you think is going to be the best and also best serve you as well, because it's, you know, it's about serving you and your family.
Exactly. So I have a couple of plans laid out in front of me, sort of option A, B, C, and we'll just take it as it comes. And I guess the trick with being a single mum too is I just have to stay flexible. The children's father doesn't live in our region. He lives in central Queensland. So as far as my future goes, like I have to weigh it up with him as well. Like where can I move the kids to, that sort of thing. So I just have to sort of focus on getting the degree done. And then once that section's finished, then we can start thinking about what comes next.
And I think that that's exactly the way that people also look at linking everything back in, look at a Spartan race. You
Yes.
kind of just focus on the obstacle in front of you, and because I feel like something that I'm very prone to doing, if I kind of stress about, the 10th obstacle when I'm on my first, that doesn't help me to stress about that right now, just to focus on the right now and what's working for me right at this second.
Yeah, that one's a really hard one to learn. So a bit of backstory, just to explain this a little bit better. I used to be an absolute control freak about my life. I had to plan for every little contingency. And the reason for that was I actually lost my first son at 21 weeks. He was diagnosed with spina bifida myeliomeningocele and a couple of other diagnoses that led to all the doctors recommending we terminate the pregnancy because he would not have a good life at all. And I fell pregnant unexpectedly. So I was so focused on getting ready to be a mum that I'd never counted for the fact that I may not be a mum at the end of the pregnancy. And that sort of overtook my life. And it got to a point where, as I said, I had to plan for every little failure, every little fork in the road, what could happen. And Spartan really helped me sort of change that outlook and adapt to, as you've said, instead of looking at obstacle number 10, look at obstacle number 1 and then change your plans, then figure things out. As you said, you cannot control what happens around you. You can only control what you do. So doing Spartans as much as I have been, it's really helped change the way that I see my world and the way that I can adapt to everything that comes into it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think that's something that I personally hope I'll be able to take away from it. Someone who suffers from a massive anxiety disorder, or major anxiety disorder, sorry, the terminology. That's something that I guess I really hope that I'm able to take away from it as well, because it's something that does perplex me so much in everyday life. And I feel like we've kind of probably already touched on this a little bit, but what is your why? What drives you through your day?
Doing Spartan is easier than being a single mum. So doing a Spartan race, it can be so hard at times, and sometimes you just have to push through. And I bounce between my life and my Spartan life when things are tough, depending on what the situation calls for. So like, if I'm having issues with something at home, maybe one of the kids are being overly difficult, I can just stop and take a breath and go, you know what? You did an ultra at Bright and climbed Mystic 5 times in one day. You can handle this. And then on the flip side, if I'm facing something at Spartan that I'm struggling with, I can go, dude, you've got 2 kids at home with autism. You're fine here. This is easy. This is nothing. So it's sort of just the situational changes, but yeah, I can just pull for what I need and find strength to keep going and put one foot in front of the other.
And I think it's great when you can also relate it back to your own life rather than looking at outside sources, which do obviously help us as well, but rather than going, if that guy can do it, I can do it, but going to yourself because you as an individual are strong enough to do it, and you can really actually use yourself as an example.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than having to go to outside sources for that example.
I learned the hard way many times that sometimes you do just have to depend on yourself and to fall back on the strength inside, and not to sound all very, holistic or anything, but we can do so much more than we expect. We just have to believe in ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. You just have to go, you know what? I failed at this time, but next time I can do it better. Next time I can do this.
Yeah. I guess moving on to the next question, what are your goals for the next year, be it personal or Spartan related?
So personal goals, I have 1 unit left that I've got an assignment on due next week, and 2 units next semester that I am hoping to finish without any complications and actually get assignments in on time, which would be a nice change.
Yeah.
And for Spartan, my goals are, I've got Gold Coast coming up soon, where I will be doing the trifecta and the Hurricane Heat. And then in July, I'll be taking on what I consider to be my biggest challenge so far. Bull and Mick have convinced me to attempt to finish the entire endurance weekend in July, which I am downright terrified of. But I'm an absolute sucker for peer pressure, and honestly, all it took to convince me to do it was sitting with Mick and Bull in Fiji for an hour at the airport waiting for flights.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got Fiji in November, which I'm going to attempt the clean sweep. So doing the trail, the ultra trifecta, and the hurricane heat, which is it's going to be fun, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's goals, right? And that's, you know, it's that thing that we've spoken on, and we've spoken on so much in this podcast so far, is that you don't know what you're capable of until you try. And it's actually funny, the episode that will release before this one is actually my episode with Mick talking about the endurance weekend. So I'm excited that you're going to be participating in the whole weekend.
I am downright terrified. But I've actually started training with Mick recently, so hopefully he'll steer me in the right direction, and I'll be prepared for whatever he decides to throw at us that weekend.
Look, and I think it's that thing of, like, you know, training is important for kind of, as you said as well, you know, trying to make sure that injury doesn't happen and that you can be as prepared as you can be, but being prepared isn't necessarily the be all end all for these events. It's like we've said so many times, it's how you react to what happens, because the hurricane heats, out of all of the races, I feel like they're the most, what's the word I'm looking for?
Unpredictable?
Yes, unpredictable, because it's kind of, you know, I've spoken to Mick before, I've had Mick in my house, and I know that that's kind of really what the hurricane heats are about. It's about using that physical strength and that mental strength, teamwork, and really testing people to, you know, help them grow as people and to be able to adapt, which I think is so important and so exciting as well, to see how people grow from the beginning of, like, you know, a 4-hour hurricane heat to the end of a 4-hour hurricane heat. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes, and just the way that the teamwork and the confidence as well within people grow, and just, you know, focusing on each challenge as it comes up, rather than trying to think about getting to the, you know, the end of the 4-hour, the end of the 24, the end of the 40-hour, you know.
Yeah, you just have to learn to stop thinking and just do what you're told.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, what do you feel like you are known for when on the course?
Well, obviously the bright coloured hair at the moment. But the biggest thing that I get asked about was last year at the Gold Coast event, I actually ran my Age Cat sprint in my wedding dress. And I have had so many people come up to me in the event since that going, "Oh my God, you're wedding dress girl, aren't you?" So I actually, over in Fiji last year, I even met a Spartan on course who had flown over from America, and he's come up to me and he's like, "Hang on, you're wedding dress girl. My wife was talking about you." And I was just like, "What? That is so cool." But yeah, I'd gone through a really nasty divorce and separation from the father of my children, and I actually got married on Mount Tamborine, which overlooks the valley that the Gold Coast event is set in. So I thought that, you know what, I need something to just really let go of what's happened and just, come to terms with everything and be at peace with myself again. So that's why I thought, you know what, jumping in those Gold Coast rolling ditches in a wedding dress with a 2-meter train is exactly what I need to do.
I think it's so great, and it feels like such a death and kind of rebirth, kind of giving you that opportunity to, and I feel like it's such a great place to also let out that frustration or the pent-up emotions that you've got, because I feel like everyone does that regardless whether it's intentional or not.
Oh, definitely. And the reason I specifically chose to do it at Spartan was when I was at my lowest and I was in hospital, I was on suicide watch, my mental health was at an all-time low, and it was my Spartan community that was there for me. like I'd had to move interstate to return home to my hometown. And so I didn't really know anybody anymore. I had a few family members here. My sister and my parents still live here, but I felt so alone. And it was my Spartan community that was messaging me daily and making sure that even though I wasn't able to go for a run without having a panic attack, I was still coming to the events and they were still showing me how much I mattered to them. And yeah, so I just thought that, you know what, doing this at a Spartan event, it can just, it returns that strength back to me. And it's just part of that stepping stone that Spartan can show how much stronger you were than the person you used to be. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the many, many wonderful things about when I started working with Spartan, why I was so keen to do it in a community that I wasn't personally part of, but I could see from the community around it and through Bull just how caring and positive and just wonderful of a community the Spartan community is, and how much they genuinely care about each other, even if they only get to see each other 3 or 4 times a year physically. Everyone is there for each other, and on the course as well, like taking in people that they have no idea who this person is and just going, yeah, like, we'll help you. Like, if you don't know how to get over this obstacle, we'll do it with you. And that makes me feel so safe and comfortable really going into an environment that I am so unfamiliar with. And, you know, I feel like you can only train so much for your first event because you can't necessarily train for the obstacles. You kind of just have to tackle them when they come up. And I feel so comfortable and safe doing that because I know that there is such a fantastic community that will be around me to support me at the time, which is, I feel like, can't be said necessarily for a lot of communities or a lot of sports as well.
Definitely.
To just kind of be there for one another no matter what.
Honestly, I've been running for about a decade now, and the Spartan community is the best I've come across in the running world. And you can go to an event by yourself and you will find friends out on course that, whether you don't talk to them until the next event or they add you on Facebook, every time you struggle in an obstacle, there would be somebody that you can turn to and go, hey, can you give me a hand here? And I think a big part of that is most of the Spartans I have met, we all have something that's happened to us that has made us need to find something to prove ourselves to ourselves. Like, we all have a backstory. The amount of Spartans I know that have had mental health issues in the past, or they've had that rock bottom place in their life, and we use that to fuel us, and we use Spartan to prove that we are better than we used to be and we are stronger than we used to be. And honestly, I really hope you can find that too, because it can be life-changing.
I'm really looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to getting to experience it in its full force of not just being at an event but actually participating. But speaking of events, what is your favorite post-race treat?
Honestly, coffee. I drink way too much coffee. I usually have about 5 or 6 cups a day. So I will have a coffee before my race, and then pretty much as soon as it's done, I'll find the coffee cart and have another one.
It's great. You've got to keep that energy going as well. It's just, it's lifeblood. It's what we need.
It is. And honestly, even my race nutrition, most of them are the coffee flavored ones.
And look, I feel like you've already given, in my opinion, so much advice for racers and first-time racers. But if you could give one, I guess, specific piece of advice for a first-time racer like myself, what would it be?
That's a bit of a hard one. Like, obviously, there's so much you can tell a first-time racer, but I think the biggest thing is to try and not be afraid. I've volunteered for Spartans since 2018. I have stood next to so many obstacles and watched so many first-time Spartans have no idea how to do something. And for every person that will ask for advice and then jump in and give it a go, there's somebody that'll hold back and go, oh, I can't do this. How do you do this sort of thing? Especially when you've got obstacles like Olympus or the rope climb, where they perceive it as needing upper body strength, and they may go, oh, I'm not strong enough to do this sort of thing. But you just need to have that courage to try. and you need to sort of let go of the fear and just realize that even trying it is better than just turning your back and walking away.
Yeah, that's, I think, fantastic advice, because it is scary, and I think it's okay to be scared, but I think, because like, I know I'm terrified. I'm shitting myself now. I probably will be on the day as well. But just kind of just, I think, throwing yourself into it safely, of course. Let's not injure ourselves. But yeah, just kind of throwing yourself into it and going, okay, well, I'm just gonna try and we'll figure it out as we go. And it's scary, and that's okay, but don't let the being scared stop you from trying.
That's exactly it. You've got to sort of go, hey, I'm going to acknowledge this fear, but I'm not going to let it stop me from trying this. I'm not going to let it stop me from having fun and learning something about myself in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our interview today. But thank you so much, Ashley, for taking the time to not only come on and chat with me today, but for your incredible candor and your advice. I think it's so important to talk about these issues and to just have honest conversations about life and being a human, living a human life, where we're not perfect. We're not as the social media portrays people to be sometimes. So thank you so much again for your time and your candor.
Thank you for inviting me. And honestly, as far as talking about issues, anybody that's ever met me on a Spartan course knows that I will not shut up and I will talk about everything. So more than happy to share my story.
Amazing. Well, I cannot wait to see you, but I cannot wait to see you on the course in Queensland.
Yes.
And warriors, thank you so much for listening and for being here today. Remember, keep conquering challenges, and we will see you in the next episode. G'day, warriors, and welcome back to The Debrief. Once again, we are joined by Bull, or known on the internet as Wise Old Bull, for today's debrief on our fabulous chat that we just had with Ashley. I guess to kind of start it off, so we're going to have a bit of a chat about like what we kind of took from that episode. You guys know what a debrief is. I think for me, something that I really took from it was kind of her take on Spartan and what kind of Spartan means to her and how she got into it. I love hearing everyone's stories of how they kind of got their start in Spartan and what inspired them to start. And I know that for Ashley, it wasn't necessarily an active choice that she made. Her mum was like, well, if you don't come and do this Spartan race with us, we can't compete because we have to have this additional person. And just how much...
Sucker punch.
Yes. And just how much that has impacted her life for the better. I think something that I also loved talking about neurodiversity, and how that kind of impacts not only way of life, but how we exercise, how we interact with other people.
Yeah, it's like it is really interesting hearing her story. I've known Ash for a little while now, and she is someone who, I mean, I've seen her on course, I've seen her breaking down, I've seen her just picking herself up and carrying on, and listening to her story is really good because it gives you the background to what you've sort of seen there, but now you understand this is not somebody who started out as an athlete. This is someone who it was their lifeline, I guess. Well, running for her was her lifeline, and then moving on, sucker punched into coming to a Spartan race, as opposed to my daughter who has been dragged kicking and screaming into one.
Yes.
Yes, just a little bit. But yeah, it's really good because the amount of people that it's as Ash said, Spartan, when she's running, it quietens her mind, because you can just listen to your breathing. I mean, you're not allowed to take headphones out or anything because it's a safety thing, but it also means that you can be on the trail in the moment doing that. And there are times I've watched Ash when she's on the ultra, and at some point you're on your own and there's nobody else around, and it's like it's really quiet and it's just you and your breathing and your footsteps, and it's you can feel connected to everything around you. And that's what she's, it's really good to hear those stories. And I took that away from her, is that it's getting connected back to it.
Yeah, because there is literally really in those events, there is absolutely nothing else that you can focus on outside of the event and what is happening in that moment, because you do have to be focused, because not only is it so intense, but you've got to be safe and you've got to be careful and aware of the people around you, which I think is something that then it's so great to hear how she's taken that into her everyday life as well, and I think will resonate with so many people. And I just loved talking to someone. Obviously we've had so many fantastic guests, but also chatting with Ash, and she's, you know, she lives, I would say in air quotes, a normal life. She is not being an athlete is not her job. It is not what she does full time. She is a mum of 2 wonderful, very neurospicy kids, and she's also studying. And she doesn't live a picture perfect life. She lives a life that is absolutely chaotic every single day, but she's found kind of solace in Spartan, and that is her me time. That's when she gets to unwind, and not think about anything else. And it's, I think, going to be so exciting, because I know this upcoming week she is participating in the Extreme Endurance Weekend, and I believe she's doing the full trifecta. She's doing all 3 events, so the full 40 hours.
Look, I'm not sure whether that's changed somewhat. I know that she's definitely doing the 12:24, but she's now done multiple 4s and multiple 4 hours this year. So to get her extreme endurance trifecta, she only needs 1 of each. So
right, okay.
It's a sort of, and this is the sort of thing with all events that we talk about, being that it's a debrief, I'm going to debrief on this, is that sometimes you've actually got to be a little bit tactical in your thinking and going, well, look, okay, so for Ash, and I don't know where she's at now, and don't preempt me on this, and Ash, don't you dare, buddy, smack me down if I say the wrong thing here. But if she's really feeling the pressure with training and all that, she might skip the 4 hour, and anybody could skip the 4 hour and then do the 12 and 24. Now, she won't have done the trifecta on the weekend, but then she's still up for the normal trifecta, which is the endurance and trifecta. And this is the first endurance and trifecta in Australia ever.
Yeah. Which it's a massive feat in and of itself, I think, to do.
Yes.
Even a 12 hour to me seems so not unachievable, but like so tough. And to do the 12 and the 24 hour, it feels like she's done so many 4 hours before that missing out on the 4 hour this time around is not going to be the end of the world. And I mean, we've spoken about kind of in the last episode what's kind of, you know, you need to be aware of in order to kind of prepare for these events. And something that I've been seeing a lot of, a lot of different people talking about it, I know that you've spoken about it as well, is on-track meals. So they're kind of like, the best way that I can think to describe on-track meals, the best way I know is, so growing up, because obviously you Bull were in the army, you used to bring us as a treat, which is a wild thing to bring as a treat, MREs.
Yes.
So on-track meals are kind of like an MRE, but honestly, like 100 times better, because they're like real proper, like hearty meals that you get that can be used for whilst you are doing something like an extreme endurance weekend. But can you tell me more about, like, I've seen Mick, I've seen you, I've seen multiple people talking about on-track meals, and they're obviously, this is not an ad, I promise this is not an ad. I'm just really curious, they are supporters of extreme endurance. What kind of is on-track meals, and why are they so good?
Okay.
Why is everyone praising them?
Okay, so yes, I've eaten, I don't know, thousands of meals ready to eat. So ration packs, whatever you want to call them. You know, you get your can of food, or you get your packet of rice, or you get a dehydrated meal where you've got to add boiling water, or you get a meal like you can just buy in Coles and that, which is like you've got a braised beef and onion or something like that, and you just heat it up, or you take it out, put it into a can, heat it up, or you can heat it up in the pouch in boiling water or something like that. Look, when I first, and I'm going to say this, I brought meals ready to eat to Mick, and when I brought them to Mick, he was like, oh yeah, this is nice. I sent him home with their steak. Their steak is it's a whole steak in the pouch, and it's cooked, and I had never had it. I only got one, and I went, you know what, Mick's going home after Picton. I'm sending this home with you to try. And I got back, when he tried it, all I got back was this, oh my God, so good. So, all right. So on-track meals, they make a range of meals ready to eat they're not just your average MRE style meal. It is a nutritious. They've got curries. They've got bolognese. They've got a carbonara. Sorry, not a carbonara, but a chili con carne, and a range of different things. They've also got sweet, some dessert foods and that kind as well. And they are really good, and they last. From memory, when you get them, the use by is 3 years. Like I look at that and go, that's something worthy of the army putting into their own packs, because that's 3 years, got really good shelf life. You can throw them in your pack and you don't have to sort of like go, oh damn, that had like a 1 month use by. I wonder if it was, or I've got food in my pack. I don't need to worry about it. And then you get out there and it's old and it's,
Yeah. So I guess that's the thing, is they're so quick and easy, but also like nutritious and delicious, because I think especially when you're doing something like an endurance weekend or a Spartan race or a hike or anything, you're exhausted. You just want food, you want it quickly, but you also want it to taste good. You don't just want something that's just nutritionally good. You want something that tastes good. And I know that with On Track Meals as well, you can get those baggies, the heating baggies that you put water into and they heat up.
That is gold. That's absolute gold, because I'm used to carrying a zip boil, and it boils water, a good size amount of water in about a minute to 2 minutes, and it's great. You put your bag in it and let it just heat up. Still got this cough. So with these bags, what you do, you crack open the inner bag, and it's got I'm not sure the base, but it's non-toxic. But you basically put it out, drop it into the big plastic bag they have with it. You put 1 or 2 meals in, and I mean, I've cooked a meal for me and Mick after the hurricane heat in Picton, one either side of it. Add 60 ml of water into that, and it reacts with the chemicals in it, and it heats it up like it's steam coming out, and after 10 minutes it's heated. So I've actually looked at it and gone, I could actually clip that to the outside of my pack with it going, and let it heat my meal up while I'm still traveling down the trail, right? And then pull my pack around in front of me, pull it off, pack back on, open it up, and eat. And I'm eating a hot meal and I haven't had to stop. Set up a cook thing and all that. Now, I don't necessarily say I want to be doing that all the time, because there are times I want to actually have a fire. I want to sit down, boil up some water and that. But it's really good for a meal on the go when you don't have to stop for anything. And the other thing is, when it's cold, right? You've got that, you've heated it all up, you've got all that kind of stuff. Then you literally can throw that little bag under your arm, and that's really hot, and that will keep you warm. It's really good if you're cold at night. You can have that going, eat your food, and then put that around yourself, and it keeps you warm. They are like, I am gobsmacked. They're not the cheapest of the ready-made meals available, but nutritious, natural, and a great variety. They're great.
Yeah. And I think they sound like the perfect thing, honestly, for Spartans, for hikers, really for anyone. I think, especially if you're invested in your health and what you're eating as well, because they are like all natural ingredients, which is important in fueling your bodies. But that's enough. That's enough fangirling about On Track Meals. I've
got to say, the steak, fantastic. I said it before, I say it again, the steak is fantastic. Fangirling.
Get the steak.
Yes.
Make sure that if you are planning on attending the Hurricane Heat this weekend, or just any races in future, or hiking, make sure to check out On Track Meals. They've done some fabulous stuff for us here at Spartan. And like I said, this is not an ad. We just love what they do. And on a similar vein, we also love what EVAC are doing. So they are a great company for equipment for these races, specifically bags. And I know that for this upcoming extreme endurance weekend, there are actually going to be some bags. So for those people that maybe sign up and at the last minute and don't know what equipment they need, I believe EVAC have provided you some bags that you're going to be able to use. But tell us in 1 minute or less about
1 minute or
evac.
less. Okay, so evac are a rucksack company, so they make not bags, but they make backpacks and the like. Now we've got a bunch of some ones that they've given us that we've got available, and we are giving one of those out to each of the 4-hour Hurricane Heat attendees who have never been to one before, and they all get a bag. Now they're really good for things like, you know, taking to work, throwing your laptop in, you know, taking to the gym. Even doing a 4-hour would be okay until you really know what you're doing and you want to actually get something a little bit more robust. But look, they're really good, and we had a few people at Gold Coast who used the evacs because they turned up, had never done anything. We said, we've got bags for you, and they used those and they finished it, no problems. They also make much stronger bags because obviously, you know, you want to get necessarily bigger, stronger, and able to have more capability. I know that Mark Meyer, I believe, who's one of our Cryptea, I believe that he's actually carrying an evac as his Cryptea rucksack for when we go out on the course. Now look, with your backpacks, evac are great. Different backpacks suit different people. I've got 5-on-1, I've got the evac, I've got Mystery Ranch from the US. I've got about 5 or 6 others. But each bag has got a different purpose, built differently, and they're going to fit you differently. So you need to still get what you like. But evac, they're a good company, and they are on board with this, and they are helping out. So, you know, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. We want to make sure that we're shouting out the companies that are, you know, doing the most and helping us in the best ways possible. And like I said, none of this is an ad for any of these companies. We're just talking about the brands that we work with, that we really love and appreciate what they do. And I like that. Like you said, you know, you need to get the bag that's right for you. There are so many different brands that you can look at. But I guess if you're wanting somewhere to start, evac is a great place to kind of start and kind of see what you like and don't like from there. And also, just as like a little bit of a shout out for myself, when this episode comes out, today, it is in fact my birthday. So if you want to be a great listener and really support that as a little birthday gift to me, please rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please follow us there. Please follow us on YouTube. Please like this video on YouTube. Just as like a little birthday present to me. And if you want to make my birthday extra special, I would love if you would fill out the little feedback form that I have linked down below. But that is it for today's episode. You guys know what to do. Follow us on Spartan Down Under Podcast for all the updates on upcoming episodes. And until next time, listeners, keep conquering challenges, warriors, and we'll see you then.